This is Until All Are Free, and I'm your host, Preston Goff. This is the best news that I can share in your feed. I'm honored to have the opportunity to tell you that Maria, the Kenyan woman we introduced to you back on episode 11 of Until All Are Free, is back home in Kenya. Now, if you remember, Maria was victimized by a trafficking scheme that found her exploited as a laborer in Saudi Arabia. Globally, the crime of labor trafficking affects nearly 25 million individuals, and this is according to the International Labor Organization. Of those 25 million, 16 million people are exploited in private sectors such as domestic work, construction, or agriculture. Labor trafficking can take many forms. It impacts migrant workers forced to work fields in the United States, young people exploited in supply chain sweatshops in Southeast Asia, and, like Maria, women coerced to accept unfair or false job opportunities in countries such as Saudi Arabia, just to name a few examples. Maria's journey over the last few years has been a bit wild, but finally, near the end of 2021, Maria was able to finish out her contract and leave the exploitative situation in Saudi Arabia. She was repatriated back to her home in Kenya. Today, Maria is working as a teacher at a school that happens to be local to her own village. The Exodus Road had a hand in helping her find this sustainable employment, and we were thrilled, as she was as well, that she could accept this job near her family. I'm going to bring you a complete update and let you hear from Maria herself at the end of this episode, but I also want to give you a chance to remember the details of Maria's story, or even be introduced to her if you haven't had a chance to listen yet. If you've already heard the episode and want to skip ahead to the update, you'll find that a little after minute 37. So that said, I'm going to replay episode 11, Labor Trafficking, Maria's story, for you here. This is one of our most popular episodes of Until All Are Free, and one of my personal favorites that we've produced. So I'll get out of the way and let you listen to it.
I was headed home after 3 weeks of being away from my family. I was getting onto the plane late at night in Nairobi. I think there are around somewhere between 30 and 50 Kenyan women that all look to be in their early 20s for the most part, who were wearing matching t-shirts, and they were clustered up all around the room. And they didn't seem at ease. They seemed uncertain, nervous, and I just wondered, who are all these women wearing matching t-shirts? And I just said, where are you headed?
I want you to help me. Here I am in this house.
Have they told you, the people who are going to employ you, what will happen to your passport when you get to Saudi Arabia? Will you get to be the one who stays in control of that? Or is the person who's going to be employing you going to be in control of your passport?
I work a lot. She don't give me the food. After now, I'm not eating anything.
And they all, to a person, said that they had already been told that their employer would retain their passport upon arrival. And that's when I asked, why is that? Why don't you get to keep a hold of your passport? And they said it's to keep us from running away.
Please help me, because I'm tired. I want to back Kenya.
In this episode, we're sharing a story told by Sarah Ray, who's one of our board members here at the Exodus Road. Sarah has worked in poverty relief and social enterprise for over a decade as the founder of Yobel Market and Nima Development. Sarah's story begins as she's returning home from a short trip overseas in Kenya, where she was working as a trainer to nonprofits in the international development space. Though Sarah had flown to and from Eastern Africa many times before, this trip was very different.
So you get to the airport and, African airports are special. You have to go through about 7 security checks, it feels like, unloading your baggage, reloading your baggage, unloading your baggage, reloading your baggage. And half the time there are brownouts, the electricity isn't working, or the right person is not there to stamp your passport in the place that you need. So you're just hoping that you make it through in like the 3-hour time window that you allotted to get to the airport before your flight. So you finally make it through, and this time was no exception. Like, it was a hassle all the way through. And we made it to the other side, and, you know, you go grab your coffee and ditch the rest of your shillings before you get on a plane to go home, and you stall to the last minute, because at the last minute, they're going to shove everybody into this holding room before you can get on your plane, where there's no restroom and there are twice as many people as there are available seats. And this is where you're going to spend the last hour sweating before you get on the plane. You know, so it's like, it doesn't even matter that you took a shower before you got to the airport, because you're not going to get on the airport in any sort of comfortable fashion. So I'm sitting in the holding tank waiting to get on the plane, and it's crowded, and I like wedge myself into this little corner space on the floor against a wall, and I'm hugging my knees, and I'm holding my carry-on bag, and I'm just trying to stay out of the way, because there are hundreds of people shoving past, trying to find their way to their friends or their family, or out to the restroom or back. So I'm sitting there, and I'm just ready. I'm ready to go home. I miss my son. I miss my husband. And I'm looking forward to the air-conditioned, comfortable seat on that plane. And as I'm waiting, just to kind of take my mind off things, I start looking around the room, people watching, wondering who I'm going to be traveling with. And I noticed something that I hadn't seen before. It was a groups of young Kenyan women who were wearing matching T-shirts, and they were clustered up all around the room. And they were different colored shirts depending on the group. So one had like a white shirt, and one had a green shirt, and one had a blue shirt. And they all looked fairly new to the idea of travel. Like, I would have bet that none of them had been on an airplane before just by looking at them. They didn't seem at ease. They seemed uncertain, nervous. Many of them were slouched down in their seats trying to sleep. And I just wondered, who are all these women wearing matching T-shirts? I'm looking around, and I decide I want to know more about these women. So I get a little bit closer, and I start to read the emblems on their T-shirts. And they all have a logo and an acronym, and then they say something to the effect of labor agency or workforce.
This is not a common occurrence.
It hadn't been for me. And, you know, it might have been just because typically when I fly home from Africa, I don't fly through the Middle East. I don't fly through Dubai. And so this is the first time that I had done that. And maybe it is much more common. I'm beginning to believe it's much more common. I remember a trip 3 years earlier in Uganda where I'd been working with a safe house in the process of doing some business training there. And the women that were a part of the safe house, many of them had been repatriated from Middle Eastern nations where they had gone in search of work and had been promised a good job and fair wages and the ability to help their families back home. And they would be working in, you know, the industries of housekeeping or domestic servants, or even as cleaners in hospitals and restaurants. And so these women, you know, would be promoted or recruited. I guess the word is they'd be recruited for these positions, and then their employer would pay for their plane ticket, their passport, their visa, everything they needed to get to country, and then they'd work a contract and get paid monthly.
Which on its face sounds really hopeful, right?
It is. Yeah, it does sound hopeful. And that part, you know, on the front end, those agencies present this job and they present this contract, and that all may be very legal and very well. But then when the woman gets into the situation where they are essentially saying, I'm going to go work for a family in the Middle East or for a company in the Middle East that I know nothing about, I've never met them in person, they've never had a video conference or any kind of interaction, and they just go there, show up on this contract where they've promised to work for 2 years. They can't break their contract per Middle Eastern law without extreme repercussions because they've been paid for in advance. So they're essentially indenturing themselves to these companies and to these families they know nothing about. And once they get into the situation, they're trapped.
So those are the suspicions, right? Bouncing around in your head in this moment when you're like, I'm just exhausted and want to go home. You're sitting in this holding area waiting to board, and what happens?
I just think they don't know what they just said yes to. And right now they're innocent. Right now they have their autonomy. They have their freedom. And everything in me wants them to not get on the plane. And I know that there's nothing I can do about it. I guess what I'm thinking in my mind is, what can I possibly do in this situation where they're already in possession of their plane ticket, they're already planning to go, they want to go, they're hopeful about this opportunity, they need it, their family needs it, and their family's depending on them. So I get closer, and as they're starting to board us on the plane, I ask some of the girls who I hope speak English, and so many Kenyans do that they did, fortunately, speak some English. And I just said, where are you headed? What are you planning to do? And I just kind of played dumb and just asked a little bit about their story, asked their names, asked if they were excited, and just tried to build a little bit of trust with a few of them. And sure enough, they were headed to Saudi Arabia, which I thought they were going to Dubai. And then when I heard Saudi, my heart sank even further, just because of the known abuses towards women that take place in that country. So they were headed to Saudi, and I said, what are you going to be doing there? And they said, we're going to be house cleaners because somebody paid for us. And those were their exact words. We're going to be house cleaners because somebody paid for us. And so we got on the plane, sat to our seats, my mind's going crazy, and I just start texting friends who are experts in the field because, frankly, I am just, at the end of the day, a concerned citizen who has a little bit of knowledge in the realm of human trafficking, but I'm no professional in this space. So I wanted to check what I was seeing and my emotions and my gut reactions against people who do this for a profession. So I reached out to several friends that I know that work in that counter-trafficking space, two of which were Matt and Laura Parker. And thankfully, Laura wrote me back immediately with empathy and concern, affirming that what I had seen was something to be aware of and to push into a little bit more. And she just asked a couple of questions. What nationality were the girls, and what language did they speak? And just encouraged me to continue the dialogue with them and find out as much as I could. And shortly after, Matt came on board and just said, yes, this sounds suspicious, and better to ask questions, better to step in than to do nothing. And so he urged me to get in contact with the flight attendants on board who should have training in recognizing potential trafficking situations. And so that was kind of my next action step as I waited for the seatbelt sign to be turned off.
Is there any part of you that's am I crazy?
Absolutely. Yeah. Or am I getting this totally wrong? Or am I just being, that white savior that wants to intervene in somebody else's life for my own sense of purpose or well-being somehow? I got up and I wanted to just, before I reached out to the flight attendant, I wanted to just confirm what I was thinking at least one more time. So I got up and I moved around the plane. I just kind of looked for empty seats, and I sat next to any of the girls that were wearing the matching t-shirts. I would borrow a seat next to them and try to get to know them a little bit, and just kind of would sit next to them and ask about their family, ask about where they were going, why they had accepted the contract, what kind of job they had been told they would receive. And then if they were seemingly open, then I would ask a little bit more. I'd say, hey, have they told you, the people who are going to employ you, what will happen to your passport when you get to Saudi Arabia? Will you get to be the one who stays in control of that? Or is the person who's going to be employing you going to be in control of your passport? And they all, to a person, said that they had already been told that their employer would retain their passport upon arrival. And that's when I asked, why is that? Why don't you get to keep a hold of your passport? And they said it's to keep us from running away. So they already knew, to a degree, more than what I realized when I first saw them sitting in the waiting room, that they would know. And they already had some sort of impression that what they were headed into might not all be sunshine and butterflies. In that process, I met two older women, and both of them had agreed to leave their 4 children. They each had 4 young children at home for the 2 years that they'd be working in Saudi Arabia in the care of grandparents. I mean, they were telling me with tears in their eyes, the look on their face was just, dejected. And like, as a mother who had just spent 3 weeks away from my young son and was missing him with every fiber of my being, could not wait to get home and see him. My heart broke. I could not imagine what these moms were feeling as they were sitting on a plane, knowing they were not going to hold their babies for 2 years at the very least, But that was the best thing that they felt they could offer their families in this situation. And so they were there. And that was what I found to be the common story. Every girl on the plane, every woman was there because they had the hope of bettering their own future or the future of their loved ones by agreeing to this contract, and they all wanted to be there. So I sat back down in my seat, and at this point I just thought, I am going to reach out to a flight attendant and just see what they think of what I've learned so far. So I passed a note to the next one that walked by, and within a few minutes I was called to the front of the plane, and I met with the head flight attendant as well as the captain of the plane. And I was really impressed that he took the time to come out and meet with me and take my concerns seriously. So I would encourage anyone who encounters a similar situation to not be afraid, that this is something that they are trained to handle and that they want to ensure that they can play a part in preventing the trafficking of human beings on their aircrafts.
Yeah, how reassuring for you to have kind of boldly taken this step, and for them to respond almost just right alongside you and wanting to be a part of that solution. That's just you can't think of a better response, right?
Yeah, no, it was really affirming. The head flight attendant was Kenyan herself, and she had seen a lot of these contracts come through like this. She was no stranger to these work contracts. She herself actually employed a woman from Kenya on one of these contracts as a nanny, and that was what allowed her to do her job. And she said that she loved her nanny and treated her like a princess because without her, she wouldn't get to work where she was working. So she had really, I feel like, a very grounded perspective of what was happening, which was helpful for me in the moment. But at the same time, she recognized that situations don't always end as well for these women. And so she suggested that we talk to the girls and that she speak to them in Swahili to help set them at ease and find out if any of them would be willing to show us their contracts. Because the contract was essentially the key component to whether or not we would suspect fraud or coercion in this situation. And so we'll call the flight attendant Judith. Judith invited whoever was willing to come back to the flight attendant quarters and show us their contracts and talk through any concerns that they might have. And so a couple of the girls came back a few minutes later, and they shared their stories and they showed us their contracts. And one of the girls in particular, Maria, had not even been the one who signed her contract. Her contract had been forged by the recruiting agency. So that would have been an example of one of the more illegal situations. And another girl just didn't even understand what her contract meant. Several of the women we spoke with didn't even have their contracts in their possession, and they had never had them. And I don't even know if they had them, if all of them would have been able to read them. They were written in both English and Arabic. They were 5-page contracts, and I think, they stated the things you would suspect, like these women are on a 2-year contract, they're paid $250 a month USD for their work that will be wired to a bank account in Kenya each month, and they were not allowed to break their contract. If they broke their contract, they were subject to the local Saudi law. And what was really, really disconcerting to me was that out of a 5-page contract, 2 pages entirely were devoted to the repatriation of the workers' remains should they die while in service to their family in Saudi Arabia. 2 pages. And so I asked Judith, is this something that happens often? Like, are these women dying in their contracts? And she said, you would be surprised how many of them we see come back in body bags. don't say that for shock value. I say it because she said it so candidly as someone who works in the airline industry and is part of the process of repatriating these women back to their families if they don't make it through their contract, unfortunately. And she said just the previous week, she had a woman who had finished her 2 years and was coming back in a wheelchair, and her face and her head were still bleeding profusely from the beating she'd received. And that's the reality. Like, sometimes they wind up with a good family, and sometimes they wind up in a highly abusive situation. And so Judith very kindly and gently tried to share that with the girls that were in the back of the plane that had chosen to come to talk with us. And she said, I don't want to scare you. That's not what we're trying to do. You may wind up with a really good family, and that is what we hope for. And she shared about her nanny and how much she loved her nanny and how she hoped that this would be the situation each of them found themselves in when they arrived in Saudi Arabia. She said, but there's also another reality where you might be ill-treated and you might be abused physically or sexually, and you need to understand that that could happen to you. And here's what needs to happen. If you find yourself in that situation, you need to try to get away. And in order to get away, you have to retain your passport because it's your ticket to freedom. And that's what I tried to reinforce with every woman that I spoke with. Your passport is your freedom. Do not surrender your passport. And that's something that I would urge every person who might be listening to this that suspects that they might be seeing a similar situation. If you do nothing else, try to encourage them to not surrender their passport. It's theirs legally. They shouldn't have to surrender it. Judith went on to encourage them as they left from the airport to go to their new home and their new work situation, to try to memorize as many landmarks as they could along the way in case they needed to escape and find their way back at any point. And then Matt had urged me to share with as many girls as I could his personal WhatsApp number to be able to reach out if they needed help, if they needed intervention, as well as the Exodus Roads Facebook page and their tips email. And so after that, I went and sat back down and I spent the remainder of the flight ripping pages out of my journal and scribbling as fast as I could 30 notes to each of the girls that were on the plane, telling them that I cared for them, that I was really praying for them and hoping that they would wind up in a really good situation, but that if not, these are the things they needed to do, and encourage them to memorize also phone numbers of family members in case their phones were taken away and held from them. And then we landed in Dubai. And I walked out with the girls, and I think half of them thought I was crazy by then. They're like, who is this weirdo that's telling us that bad things are going to happen to us? And I felt badly about that. Like, I didn't want to scare them. That wasn't my intention at all. I just wanted them to be as equipped as they could with the little time that they had before potential freedoms were going to be withheld from them. And so I handed out notes. I sat with several of the girls over their layover, and we shared some snacks, we shared stories, we laughed, we took pictures, we talked about our families, and we just did things that you do with friends. And I built a sweet little rapport with a couple of the girls and shared my WhatsApp number with them as well before they got on the plane, and hugged them and prayed for them and wished them the best. And then I was off on my way home, and they were there for several more hours before they headed to Riyadh. And then 3.5 months later, this was in January of 2020, I got a WhatsApp message from Maria. And at first, she was just reaching out, connecting. I think she'd probably made enough money where she could afford credit at that point. And I was really encouraged to hear that she still had her phone. That gave me a lot of hope. And she said her work situation was okay. She was with a family with 6 kids. She was working a lot, but she was managing. At the same time, I heard from another girl that I had met, Beatrice, who was just also having just a decent time in her contract. It was her second contract, actually. She'd done one in Qatar before that. So she was a little more seasoned and knew kind of what to expect. And we just kind of kept in touch. And then a few months later, after we'd just kind of been in touch every other week or so, I got a message from Maria around the same time that the pandemic was really exploding across the world. And she was extremely stressed. And she shared with me that her work situation had really deteriorated, that she was being ill-treated by the family, verbally abused, working from 4:30 in the morning until 10 o'clock every single day. She was the last person to eat after feeding all the children at night, slept on just a small pallet on a concrete floor, had been denied medical treatment on several occasions when she was sick, and had her salary consistently cut for small infractions. I mean, months of salary withheld for basic mistakes. On top of that, the family was not only using her to clean their home from top to bottom, but loaning her out to all of their family members who also didn't have help and making her clean for them as well. So a total breach of what was in her contract and what she was expecting. And she wanted out. But she didn't know how to get out, and she was willing to not earn any more money, and her family was willing to have her come home without anything to show for her time in Saudi. She just wanted out.
And she's sharing this all with you through WhatsApp?
Yeah, occasionally I would get voice messages. If she was sharing something that was sensitive, that she was worried might be read at another time, she would do a voice message.
I'm going to jump in and interrupt the story for just a moment. Sarah has shared one of Maria's voice messages with us, and we've been given permission by Maria to share this message with you. We've censored Maria's real name and her specific location in this clip. Take a listen.
I want you to help me. Here I am in this house. Madam, she is shouting for me. She called me every time. The dog. She tell me I'm smelling. I work a lot. She don't give me the food. After now, I'm not eating anything. And I work a lot. I wash the hall. I clean the hall. I clean the floor. I clean all those things. And the food is problem. She shouting every time. She calling me dog. She telling me I'm smelling. I don't have the peace of mind. Please help me. Cause I'm tired. I want to back Kenya.
So I just tried to encourage her and to care for her and to, I don't know, there wasn't a lot I could do, but I did reach out to a few friends to look for a way for her to leave her situation. She was not in possession of her passport, and that was a major obstacle. When I asked Maria if she was being physically or sexually abused, she told me no. It was verbal abuse and it was labor abuse. So I reached out to another professional that I'd been told about by Judith on the plane, who was another Kenyan advocate who worked for a different airline and lived in Dubai and was helping women find flights home that needed to escape. And so I was able to talk with her almost as a consultant. I spoke with her on the phone a couple of times, and then I put her in contact directly with Maria. And she said that unfortunately, because of COVID, all the flights commercially were being shut down out of Saudi Arabia, and there was no way for her to get a flight home. And her only hope would have possibly been a repatriation flight if she could have gotten on one, but they were so few and far between, and she would have had to have her passport in order for that to happen. And so her best advice, unfortunately, was that Maria sit tight and endure and survive. Because if she was to run away at this point, her life would be in so much more danger as an unaccompanied African woman in a Saudi Arabian society. And so that is where she is to this day. I mean, Maria has remained in her home and in her situation. She has really, really endured a lot. She has chosen to remain very, very strong. I'm really, really inspired by her. And as she's persevered, some things have slowly begun to change for her that she's shared with me. And her employers have actually come around a bit and given her better treatment and a better situation. And so she's not quite as desperate to leave as she was when she first reached out to us. And I'm really, really thankful that has transpired in the way that it has.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious to know, like, what does your ongoing relationship look like?
Yeah, so she and I are in touch almost every day. I think it's been for me a really special friendship, one where I have been challenged almost every single day or every week to remain mindful of the plight of someone who is living without the freedoms that I enjoy every day. And it has drawn me in to that world in a way that otherwise it might have been more easily forgotten in my day-to-day life. I think we get going into our to-do lists and our families and our responsibilities, and we don't always step into the stories of others as deeply as we can. And so Maria draws me into her story every time that I hear from her. She's extremely gracious. She gives me much more credit in our friendship than I deserve. But I think the reality is I'm someone who's consistently caring for her, and I'm consistently encouraging her to stay strong and to persevere. And I'm supporting her the best I can with my friendship. And that means a lot, because I don't think anyone else is doing that for her right now. And so I'm thankful for the opportunity. I'm thankful that I get to intersect with her life. I'm thankful I get to pray for her and to hope for her to make it through this contract or find a way home if that's what she really needs to do. And that it really truly will be the impetus that she is seeking toward a more hopeful future. And I plan on staying in contact with her as long as I possibly can. And I hope that means that she'll return to Kenya in another year, because she's already done an entire year, that she'll return home and that she and I will get to be friends, and I'll get to go and visit her someday.
Yeah. You know, we say often that justice is in the hands of ordinary people. And I think it's one thing to like kind of fly in and pronounce your own idea of what justice looks like in the life of another person. And it's another to walk with them through the darkness, to help them endure it, and to help them to discover their path towards justice. And I just see that this journey has been the latter, it seems like, for you. And I just think there's something so right about that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really well said. I think everything in me wants swift justice. And I've always had a very high justice meter. And so when I heard that she wanted out of her situation, everything in me wanted to storm the castle and figure out, come hell or high water, how are we going to get her home? And I don't want to leave my friend in this situation. It has been much harder to stay the course, knowing what she's up against every day and feeling like there isn't really any true intervention that I can offer with the state of the world right now. But it has been a really beautiful, beautiful thing to know that staying in it as her friend, even though for me that is the less comfortable option, has been probably the more important reality of what was needed for both she and probably for me. Like, her life is changing mine, and I'm going to be different for the rest of my days because I get to know her and know her story.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Since this story was recorded, Sarah did receive an update from Maria, and I'm going to share it with you. But I want you to think about something as you hear Maria's message. Fear can lead us to believe that when we step out and do something that makes us feel vulnerable on behalf of someone else, that we'll be all alone in it. But in Sarah's experience, her boldness was met with affirmation and support from the people around her. It's a beautiful testament to the way that ordinary people can ensure that systemic change actually occurs. We don't have to believe that we're all alone when we step out to fight for justice. We're better together. But sometimes we have to take the first step and talk to a stranger. So here's the update from Maria, sent via voice message in November of 2020 from a quiet stairwell in a place far from her home.
It has not been easy, madam, to live here in Saudi Arabia. More so in this house. Though I have some little bit of lessons that I've come to learn when I'm still here. Life is tough, and it doesn't have life needs someone to be strong and a focused person for one to achieve what she or he needs in this life. Other challenges has made me to be strong enough to not quit, because were it be like I was from a well-up family, I wouldn't have tolerated, or I wouldn't have put up with the life that I'm living here. So it has been a good lesson. The challenges has been a good lesson to me, and so I just try to cope up with them until that day I'll make it. Yeah.
The audio you just heard from Maria was recorded in November of 2020. And Maria had already been in Saudi Arabia for several months, and she was fighting to stay encouraged despite the difficulties of her situation. Fast forward to today, and Maria is now back at home in Kenya with her family. Just a little over 6 months ago, she began a job as an elementary teacher at a community school that was established by a nonprofit organization local to her home village in Kenya. The Exodus Road, through our Beyond Rescue Survivor Fund, was able to pay for Maria's salary at the school. If you're a supporter of the Exodus Road, you've literally been a part of providing a safe place for Maria to land and reintegrate in her country. By funding this job, you're also helping to prevent a cycle of exploitation that is seen far too often in the lives of victims of human trafficking. Teaching was a new career pathway for Maria, but over the last half of a year, she's really grown in her ability to plan and prepare lessons and nurture the students in her care. The staff at the school even say that Maria is very good at singing and can often be heard leading your students in song throughout the school hallways. In the time that she's been back home, Maria has married, and as of recent, she and her husband learned that they're now expecting their first child.
I'm so privileged to talk to you. It wasn't a fine feeling to leave my parents, to leave my family, and go back in Saudi Arabia. Actually, it was because I didn't have any other option, and I wanted to at least make my life a better life. At least I had told myself, at least I don't want to struggle as such, because maybe I don't have money and I don't have a good life, that is. So I just decided to leave my family, even though I had loved them, even though it wasn't my wish to go and work there. When I reached there, things were not easy. Things weren't easy, so I struggled a lot until I came back. When I came back, life has been so nice. Life has been good. Okay, I can't say life has been so nice, but it's not the same as when I was in a foreign country. So at least I can say I have something that I can manage myself. Yeah. So I'm so happy for the position I am in, because what I can say is that God has really been on my side. Yeah, it has not been easy. I hope to become a great businesswoman, and start my business and have a good life, and also to make my country to change a little bit, if I can, or how I will, to change my other women over here who are also willing, or who are don't have any other idea about foreign country. And I think I'll have helped them a little bit.
As always, I want to thank you for listening to this episode of Until All Are Free. Until All Are Free is a podcast by the Exodus Road. We disrupt the darkness of modern-day slavery by partnering with law enforcement to fight human trafficking crime, equipping communities to protect the vulnerable, and empowering survivors as they walk into freedom. If you haven't taken a moment to look us up online, I'd really encourage you to do so. We're always publishing all kinds of engaging content on our website, theexodusroad.com, and we share every time that an operation is successful, and we celebrate when survivors are rescued and perpetrators are arrested. If you're interested in leaving a positive impact on our world, I think you're going to find our site really inspiring. Again, check us out at theexodusroad.com. This podcast is hosted and produced by me, Preston Goff. If you're listening, I'd love to know about it. Please send us a message on your favorite social platform and tell us why you choose to listen to Until All Are Free. You can find The Exodus Road on most platforms with our handle, @The Exodus Road.